Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett and I'm the founder and owner of TechFuseNup, and today we are continuing the hacking classes and talk about malware. Today we're specifically talking about viruses and worms. Now, as far as things goes, this is going to be a theoretical class. This is not going to show you how to make viruses and worms. That will be left up to a future class deep in the future. But for right now, it's going to be pretty much a talking head class. So I'm trying to do some PowerPoint things here and there, so if you want to just minimize this or put this in the background while you do something else, then go ahead and do it, and you're not really going to miss out on anything. But as far as things goes, let's jump into some quick advertisements so you can help me push this channel much further than I can do just on my own, and I'll be right back. Thanks for sticking around during this transition. Now, if you want to help me out at all, either by financial or other means, then feel free to click the Patreon button to go to my Patreon campaign, and that way you can donate there and check out what I plan to do with money. Or you can click the PayPal button and you can donate there. You can either donate one time there or do a monthly reoccurrence. And lastly, if you don't want to help out with money, either because you just don't have it or whatever it is, then feel free to share this video and share my other videos, and please check out the top button to go to my main channel. But anyways, hope that you like this video, and let's bring it back to the actual video. Welcome back. Now, in case if you missed this the first time around, this is going to be mostly a talking head video. There's not really too much to show, but it's just going to be explaining the mindset of the hacker and how viruses and worms work. So let's jump into viruses as far as malware goes. And with viruses, as you may or may not know, they are malware that actually replicates. They do require a executable program to start up, but after that point, it might not even require you to click on anything. This is very important to note because some things that you download from the internet and install and start up, they can be viruses. They can legitimately be viruses. So maybe some toolbar that you like, maybe something that says, oh, clean off viruses off your computer, and it really actually is loading viruses on your computer. Now, what exactly does the viruses do? That's actually depending on the actual hacker and what ability you're actually giving it. What I mean by this is if it sends information out, then does your firewalls allow that, or does it delete programs? Are you in a what's called a sandbox environment? There's many things that can basically say what it could or could not do. But for the most part, some viruses do nothing. Some viruses actually do something. So it's a tricky thing. But most viruses, they slow down your computer no matter what. So as far as things goes, how do you detect viruses? Well, it's through a signature within a file, and this is pretty much how the antivirus software like Avast, Northern, and so on detects the virus itself. Now, what I recommend is for you to actually update your antivirus software at least once a day at minimum. And I personally recommend that you do a full scan once a day if all possible. At worst, because I know a lot of people don't have that time on their hand and that stuff, maybe once a week at worst. But if you're running a company or doing something worthwhile, then you probably do need to do it once a day at minimum. For companies that's actually worthwhile, and we're talking about something past a 5-10 person company, or maybe if it's a small accounting, then you might want to do this, is scan your stuff 2 times a day, so every 12 hours. So that's very important to note when it comes to viruses in itself. Now let's talk about the different type of viruses out there. You have, and there's a little bit more than on this list, boot sector viruses. These are viruses that actually hide within your boot sector. This will actually load up before your operating system itself loads up fully. And this is very important to scan for. A lot of people think that a lot of antivirus systems scan in this area, and they don't. A lot of them don't. So make sure the antivirus system that you're dealing with actually scans in the boot sector and all the other areas. And the way to do that is just contact the antivirus system, and that they'll tell you if it does or doesn't. I mean, there's no reason why they wouldn't. Now, as far as some of the others, you got program viruses, and this is obviously a part of an application. So, like I said before, you might have some things that you download that says speed up my computer or whatever it may be, and that's a program. So therefore, you got, I mean, if it's an infected program, then you got a virus within it. The program might be legit, it might not. So that's usually you need to keep in mind. There could be ransomware within a program, so that's also something to keep in mind when you're downloading something like that. Or it could be even something that looks legit. Maybe it's a old program. The developer, they don't have a web page anymore. You'll see this more and more nowadays, especially since some times went by since technology really started taking off back in the day. But you'll see this more and more nowadays where the developer doesn't have their web page anymore. So you want to use a particular software that will work today and actually will do a function that no one else actually has programmed in, either because it's just not really demanded or whatever it may be. And you have to find somewhere to download it, and that somewhere might actually affect the program itself. The program might still work and everything, but the program itself might be infected. Now, you have script viruses. You might have heard this with JavaScript, Flash, and some other stuff. These are operating in browser-based. Now, and this is the interesting one, is macro viruses. Macro viruses are commonly within Microsoft Office. Now, the interesting thing with this is back in the day, Microsoft, they actually started allowing macros within Microsoft Office. This basically made it more user-friendly and easier, and it's still in today. But with the macro viruses, sorry about that, the macro viruses, what they will do is they'll actually start infecting programs outside of Microsoft Office and start dealing with things outside of Microsoft Office. It might even deal with things within Microsoft Office itself. The thing is every so often you'll see a patch coming out for Microsoft Office, and sometimes it's a security patch for these macro viruses and closing up these security holes. You'll see in other type of things, there's a couple of programs that uses macros. You can probably think of some yourself. Now you have there's multiple things out there as far as the terminology on this last one, but it's basically multiple viruses working together. And so, for example, you have a macro virus and a program virus. So what will happen is you require both of them to run in order for it to actually do its job. And that's actually quite interesting, and these particular ones are extremely hard to detect with or without a antivirus software. And on top of that, these are very specialized. I can give you a couple of examples in a little bit. Before we do that, let's talk about a different type of malware, which is worms. Worms are, unlike viruses themselves, they really don't need you to do anything. They tend to be a malware that actually penetrates an operation system's vulnerabilities. Usually there's some type of vulnerabilities whenever you get these updates. This is including OS X, Linux, and Windows. Whenever you get these updates, sometimes there are security updates to patch up these holes. Now, of course, you'll hear more about Windows than the other few, but you also have to keep that in mind, which is actually used more than anything else in the world. So just because you're on one doesn't mean that you're safe. Now, as far as things goes, let's talk about firewalls real quick since I brought that up. Firewalls, they can protect you from worms, spyware, and stuff like that. They can protect you from it coming in, but the thing is, you got to keep in mind is the more it protects you, the less availability that you have. So if you really have a really great firewall, you're not going to be able to download. You might not even be able to watch videos, and you're certainly not going to be able to do much. This is obviously not a good thing for a lot of people, so that's the thing that you gotta keep in mind. What do you want versus how much protection do you want? And the problem is once these things are in, the firewall does nothing. So if the worm actually infects the system itself, if it's trying to get in and the firewall's blocking it, it's blocked. But once it's in and it's affected your system, there's not too much that the system could do besides detect the worms and remove them as quickly as possible. Now, back in the day, worms were really, really bad, and the reason why is most of them actually took down entire systems. We're talking about huge systems of 40,000 computers or so. Now, today, they don't do that because it's kind of obvious what's going on when you have something like that going. But what they do today is they tend to find vulnerabilities. They go for a particular thing. The worms are very thought out. They say, for example, if you are a hacker, you're attacking a accounting firm. You know a particular client goes to the accounting firm. You know that client goes to a particular person, a particular accountant. So what you'll do is try to have the worm find that accountant's computer, find the client, and basically make a gateway so the person can actually see everything coming through, and possibly infect the system and even make it something where it's like botnets or logic bombs or something like that in there for later on. So that's pretty important. Now, again, like viruses, not all worms are bad, quote unquote. Some worms, like viruses, they infect the system and they actually try to patch up some stuff. Some gray hats out there, they have a good heart in mind, but they are kind of idiots when it comes to something like this. Some worms, there was one that's known as Nazi. It actually tried to patch up your computer. The problem is when it patches up your computer, you didn't really authorize these patches, so that's one problem right there. But let's let that slide. Okay, it affects my computer, but here's a bigger one. It might actually stop you from doing an important service. So say, for example, with me, I just set up a home server. Now I have a hypothetical situation. A worm affects it. I have certain ports open so I can remotely control it from another computer within my own network. Do full control, hear sound and everything from that home server, which, by the way, I have a video on how to do that. The problem is if the worm actually closes those holes, now I gotta unplug the entire server, bring it to a monitor, plug the monitor into it, and open the thing back up and figure out why did it close in the first place. You probably will see that at least once or twice if you go into this career field. And again, these people who make these have good hearts, or at least I hope they do. But the problem is sometimes they close up things that are actually very important. Obviously, that's a minor situation. You can get very major situations very fast. So that's a huge thing that you gotta keep in mind. Not all worms are bad, but they can cause huge problems, either being that they close important holes, they make holes, or they can crashing entire systems, or they basically make a gateway, and that way the gateway will allow a hacker to upload bots and some other stuff into the system. Now, two real-world examples I could give is the Iran nuclear power plant and the military, United States military, where they got infected by an idiot in the go into a parking lot, find a thumb drive, and plug it into a classified system. Yeah, that was real smart. I'll get into the second one. It's very entertaining. It also has a moral story of don't pick up crap in a parking lot and plug it into your computer. Or if you do find something in the parking lot, like a thumb drive, a CD, or something like that, go and give it to the IT people, and they can figure out what it does. Real quick, I just want to put this out there real quick. There are CDs out there that someone can actually trick you, and by putting a CD out in the parking lot, you put a CD in your computer, it will actually wipe your computer to the point that you ain't getting anything back. And you might think, it is a virus, it goes in and I could stop it. No, it's a bug out CD. I've seen several of them. They're 3 megabytes in size, and they will wipe an entire computer in a matter of seconds. And if you try to stop it after several attempts, your computer won't even know it's a computer anymore. Very important, don't pick up CDs, don't pick up thumb drives in parking lots, just throw them away. Or at worst, get them to your security, the IT security, and tell them that you found it out there. And if it's like, say, the military or something like that in your country, they can figure out if it's classified documents, if it's whatever. So let's get into the Iran one. This is quite interesting because it's believed that this was a United States made virus. There's no proof either way. I mean, obviously the point of being a hacker is, well, not getting caught. In fact, if you get caught, you suck as a hacker. Or at least if you're a black cat or a super black cat, you suck at getting caught, which in this case, they're super black cats. So as far as this goes, what ended up happening, and there's several other countries that could have done this, so it's probably like 5 or 6 countries that could do this. But anyways, what ended up happening is the virus was made, and it was looking for, the logic bomb in it was looking for a particular operating system running on the computers, a particular thermostat, because keep in mind, nuclear power plants have to have thermostats to, see if the rods are overheating or whatever. And it was looking for the particular brand, model, and the software version running on the thing. And the interesting thing is, all these conditions could only be met if it was that one nuclear power plant which it was targeting. There was no other nuclear power plant, and there was no other anything else, because there was like several other conditions in there, but there was no other anything that could have triggered the logic bomb, other than maybe a test site, whatever the test site was, to make the actual logic bomb, to make sure it worked. So what ended up happening is after this was made, it was found around 90 some odd percent, I think it was like 93% of the, estimated 93% of the computers around the world were affected with this particular virus. It did absolutely nothing, to the point that no virus security systems actually thought of it being a virus, because it literally did nothing. If one of these events weren't true, it did nothing besides spread. So what ended up happening is, keep in mind, nuclear power plants are not connected to the internet. They are, someone can take a thumb drive and do that. So what ended up happening is, when it spread to a thumb drive, someone that worked at a nuclear power plant, they took the thumb drive, probably innocent and whatever, brought it to the nuclear power plant, plugged it in, probably had their work documents and everything on there. I don't know. But basically what happened is once they plugged it in, it infected the internal systems of the nuclear power plant. Then all these triggers were met, the logic bomb was triggered, and the entire system went haywire. Again, for the logic bomb, if one of these things weren't met, then it won't done its job. It will say, be quiet. So that other than spread, because you got to spread in order to affect the right system. So that is the mindset of one type of hacker, and the result of that, and my guess, the entire purpose of that was the setback Iran in their nuclear power. And keep in mind, the nuclear power, the actual uranium is different from the actual nuclear bombs. There is an actual big difference between the grade and everything. So it was meant to set them back, and not the nuclear bombs area, which there probably is some type of thing sending them back there, but it was meant to send them back in the nuclear power as far as powering their cities and stuff. So let's talk about the second one, the second example I can give that is probably on the more extreme side and probably the pinnacle of our viruses that I've ever heard of. So as far as this one, the virus, it's I think it's called agent.awf or BTC, I can't remember, but basically what happening with this particular virus, it doesn't matter what its name is because it changes, and I'll explain a little bit more on that and why this is the pinnacle. What this particular virus did is someone made it. I don't know who made it. There was no open documents on who made it. Keep in mind, most likely the United States military in the United States knows who made it, but no one actually is openly saying anything, so I can't say anything, and I don't even know myself, and I would like to actually know. So that it would be interesting to study how it was made. But anyways, as far as this particular virus goes, what ended up happening is someone from the United States military, I forgot which branch it was, but basically they're being probably the most stupid person I've ever heard of the world, especially since they were in a position that they were using classified systems. They basically found a thumb drive in the parking lot. The thumb drive, well, obviously was affected, they didn't know. So instead of taking it to, because keep in mind, since they're dealing with classified systems, instead of taking the thumb drive to the security, and like they're supposed to, the person plugged it in to a classified system computer. So what happened then? The entire system was infected. So that's a huge thing that you got to keep in mind when you're actually administrating systems, is what is your weak points. And obviously for there, it was actually dealing with that. In fact, after that happened, the United States military, at least this is what was said, I ain't personally seen it, but also I'm not personally around it. The United States military is supposed to eliminate all thumb drives, the ports on all classified systems, so that way this can't happen in the future. Because keep in mind, the person, they obviously had a background check, they obviously had high scores in school and connections and all this other stuff, and they just did this one stupid thing, and this actually is wrecking the system for a very, very long time. It's believed it's still wrecking the system, but openly it's supposed to have been eliminated a while back. Now, as far as what happened once they plugged it in fact, let me tell you what happens when you do take it to security, and you are in a position like that. Depending on your government, it might be different. They might just, get rid of it right there and then. But most likely, if your government is, or at least your company or or area is worth their salt, worth their weight in salt, then basically what you're going to see is the IT people, they create a sandbox environment. This basically disconnects the actual thumb drive or whatever program that they're going to run from all networks. It basically makes it where the thumb drive has no access to any of their computer. They can take a look at it, look into it, and do everything. And once the sandbox environment goes away, everything within it gets wiped. Some sandbox environments, you might have to, just literally burn the computer. Wipe it with, if it has regular hard drives, with magnetic, and just get rid of it. You won't see that hard drive or any of the hardware ever being used on a computer again. That happens. Some of them, it's a software wipe. That's used. Software wipes usually with companies. The actual where they get rid of the entire computer, and after they magnetic wiped it and everything, so it won't affect anything. That's usually within governments because money. I mean, most companies don't have enough money to throw out computers left and right for one little thumb drive. But what will happen is they'll just do that, test it out, see if it works, and see what's in there. Because if it's a company, maybe it's blueprints. If it's a government, maybe it's classified documents. So is there a security leak? Is there a mole? And that's what they're looking for. So what happening is once the person plugged in the USB drive into the computer, it infected the entire network. It infected the entire network, and it not only did that, it changed its name. It changed its name per computer, and after every so often, it had its own logic bomb in it. Basically, after a certain amount of time, it changed its name, it changed its signature. So no matter what you did, it was virtually impossible to figure out this virus because once the signature itself has changed. The core signature shouldn't change in itself, but the replicating, the changing the name and all that stuff, that shouldn't really change in itself. But to my knowledge, because I don't have first-hand experience, supposedly it did. So it made it virtually impossible for anyone to actually detect this virus, or at least find it within a reasonable amount of time. Now again, I doubt that actually happened because realistically, looking at the reality of things, the signature itself, the core signature itself, it shouldn't change at all. But the name will, the some of the other things, what it did, it will adapt to how you're searching for it. It'll close down firewalls. It'll open up things. It'll crash a system. It'll do a bunch of things. I've seen viruses, and other than this one, I've seen viruses actually, when you start a antivirus scan, it will shut down that. It will keep that thing from opening, and if you actually try to close it, it will wipe the entire computer and move on. So it's pretty important to note how severe this thing got. Now, what this virus's goal was is to be a backdoor. Basically what will happen is every so often, and this is how it was detected, every so often it pumped information out. It pumped information out to a given offsite server. It went through a bunch of proxies and all that other stuff, but went to an offsite server. And then someone went in, collected the information, deleted the logs, and left. So it's pretty important to note how difficult it is to note that, because not only the thing went through a bunch of proxies, so if it went through enemy states, then you got a problem going through their internet and then finding out that you are hacking into the servers. And also, if it's on a server, someone deletes the log, it's very hard to actually figure out who actually logged into it and got the information. So that was a big security leak. There's another one I could think of while I'm on this topic. This one was interesting. This actually affected Boeing. Basically, and this deals with the quality. Basically, what's happening is these scanners. What's happening is when people did their work orders, they scan. There was a barcode scanner, so they scanned their stuff. At the end of the day, the scanner would actually sit in a charger and upload to the servers. It turns out that while the thing was sitting in the charger, it was uploading to the servers. It was also copying the information and sent over to China. So things like that also happened. Now, how did it get on there? It wasn't due to the viruses and worms, but if it did have a virus and worm, then what could have been happening? It could have infected their internal systems, and even if they got rid of those scanners, which they did, there's not much they can do besides look through the entire system, make sure there was nothing there, and hope that they got everything. Because you got to keep in mind, a lot of this stuff, the signatures are so new that you ain't gonna run no antivirus scanner on it. You got to find it, and trust me, it's tough. Look at my video on how to find malware. I halfway got through. I think I got like 10% of what you really should do, and it's real tough, real quick. It's a very advanced thing, even for someone who actually does it. It's very advanced to find these viruses. So as far as that scanner one, by the way, when it happened, it was a part that the manufacturer that made a scanner, they were using a chip that came from China, and that basically caused the entire thing. I don't know if Boeing was targeting. I don't know if China was targeting Boeing, but that's what happened at the end of the day. I think the Department of Defense found it because of reasons. So anyways, that type of stuff happens, and that's a huge thing to keep in mind. Again, in case if you missed it, don't pick up thumb drives, don't pick up CDs that you don't know what they are, given that they're outside your house. If they're inside your house, you probably made them yourself. If they're outside your house, even in your driveway, you're not familiar with it, yeah, you might want to throw that away. That happens less in driveways. I've heard of it happen a lot more in parking lots, like banking parking lots and stuff like that. And you'll hear more and more about banks getting hacked by that method. But you'll hear it once in a while in public parking lots. Someone who's hoping to get someone's identity. You'll hear about that once in a while. But anyways, as far as this goes, this has been a kind of a glance over the viruses and worms, talking about several types of viruses and worms, several examples, and an example of something that happened in Boeing, but how it could have been much worse if it was a virus. So anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I'll try to answer as quickly as possible. And if you have any tips or anything that you want to add, go ahead and leave that there. And if this helped you or anything, then please leave a like, please subscribe, and please share. If you didn't find this helpful or whatever it may be, then please leave a dislike and explain why you left a dislike so I can improve future videos. But anyways, this has been Craig Bennett, founder and owner of TechViewsNope, and I hope you have a great day.